Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi. He's wearing a sweater again because it's still really cold. In fact, it's colder today than it was yesterday. And this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. Do you have anything to say today? He says I'm getting a little hot in this. So I first wanted to introduce our newest family member, which is this, I don't know, maybe I'll have to put it on this hand, this adorable little Corgi ring that my sister gave me. See, he's got little piggies. His ears stick up dangerously though, so I don't know how much we can wear him on a daily basis, but he's pretty darn adorable. He looks a little bit like a husky, but he's a little Corgi. Here's the back of him. So thanks to my sister, we have our new family member. And today, because it's still so cold, I thought we would continue to talk about cold weather care for pets, focusing even more today. Hi, Danny. Yeah, it's even colder where you are. I don't even want to think about how cold it is where you are. Focusing today a little more on health issues with cold weather and your pet. So the first thing I want to mention, because this little boy needs a bath, it's not a great idea to give your pet a bath too often in the winter because the oil in the coat actually helps keep them warm. And they may be a little stinky, but that oil is really helping your pet when he goes outside. And remember, it might take up to 5 minutes for them to go out and do their business, so they need to be as warm as possible. And I'm not probably going to put this coat on him when he's just going out for a little morning break. So I want him to have that oil in his coat. So he won't get a bath till he absolutely needs one before the Pet Expo in January 30th or so. Right, this? Do you need a bath? He's like, no thanks. In addition to which, he's so thick-coated. If you have a dog like him with a double coat, it takes hours and hours and hours, and sometimes overnight for them to dry completely. So letting him go outside with a wet coat, not a good idea for him or you. Another tip for their pads when you're going out in this weather with the roads and stuff, there are things, there's some Musher's oil that you can use on their pads to protect them from all the chemicals in the road, and you can also just use plain old petroleum jelly. Shockingly, it's not that easy to find petroleum jelly anymore, but that's a good thing to put on the pads. It helps keep them moist, and it helps prevent some of those chemicals from seeping up into their pads. And of course, you want to give them a good wipe with a damp cloth when they come in, or a towel, so you don't get petroleum all over your house. But if you are planning to walk quite a bit on a road surface, it's a good idea to protect them, or on the salt. Another thing you might want to do is increase their food a little bit. It is cold even in your house, and they might be laying in a drafty spot in your house, depending on where and if they actually have a bed in your house. And so increasing the food a little bit, you want them a little chubby in the winter. It helps keep them warm. Think about northern animals, polar bears, walruses, some of the whales. They're round, fat animals. Round helps keep you warm. So a little rounder dog in the winter is not the worst thing. And it can really help improve their overall health in the winter, to keep them a little chubby, because they have more energy to draw on to stay warm and do more activities outside. The other thing is, if you keep your pet bed on the floor, you may want to put some blankets under it or boost it up a bit. Many houses like mine, it's built over its garage, and so the floor is freakishly cold. Now my dog does not sleep on the floor, hardly ever. He's always on the sofa, and when he's hot, he goes on the floor. But it's not really a kind thing to expect your dog to be on the floor without a bed all the time. So, when you have a great big dog, well, I have to laugh, because my client with Pyrenees, they completely took over the sofas, and she actually just had to buy another one for her family and her to use, because the dogs would be quite protective about their sofas. So, but when you have a little dog, you can get them a couple of different beds and put them in places around the house, and just put a folded blanket or an old bed under that bed just to get them a little bit off the floor. That helps keep them warm. And how cold is too cold for a walk? Well, for a large or medium-sized dog, which is probably 35, 40 pounds and up, you want to walk when it's over 20 degrees. But when it's below 20 degrees, it's not a good idea to walk your dog very far. You can walk for like 30 minutes when it's around 20 with a large dog, And then for little guys like Tristan, it might be too much to go out for 30 minutes in the cold. So 15, 20 minutes when it is in around 20 degrees. And the AVMA, the Veterinary Association, recommends no walks when it's less than 0 degrees out. Well, let's face it, most of us aren't going out when it's less than 0, but somebody like Danny there who lives in the Dakotas, it's not ever above 0. And if you want to walk your dog, you have to take him out. So you're going to have to just go for a shorter walk and really protect his paws and give him a nice blanket. Cold weather can also worsen some health conditions that your dog may already have, such as arthritis. So it's a good time to think about giving your dog a joint supplement or glucosamine, even if they aren't on that year-round. I know a lot of my horse clients switch to some glucosamine supplements in the winter just to keep the joints lubricated. My sister at www.drjudymorgan.com, she has a whole host of supplements for joint health that you can find some just to use in the winter, especially if your dog is 9 or 10 and up. You want to keep those joints happy with the cold weather. Why are you hiding? He says, I don't even want to think about being old. Tristan. Another important thing related to joint health is, like, my dog is little. His legs are, 5 inches long. The snow here is about a foot deep and icy. And even if you have a bigger dog, like a Labrador, that's playing out in the snow, they are so susceptible to strains and sprains and muscular injuries. So if your dog is playing in the snow and it's this heavy, icy snow, not the light, fluffy snow, but even then, make sure you check them thoroughly for injuries when they come in. And even every night, I really advocate giving your dog a little massage every evening because it's pleasant for you and him. And this is a good time to check for areas of the body that might have increased heat, which would indicate that they may have a little muscle strain or a pull in a muscle going on. So it's good to know about that and monitor it so that you don't keep playing outside with the kids, with the dog every single day in the snow and creating an injury that then requires veterinary intervention to a high degree with surgery or things like that. So really keep an eye on your pet's joint and muscular health in this weather. I know myself, I have to add a supplement of magnesium, especially in the winter, just to keep my body using all the other supplements I take so that my joints and muscles stay healthy. Those Charlie horses you get, those are a result of often deficiency in magnesium. So magnesium may be something to look at feeding in the winter as well, for especially big dogs that are really out in the snow, just to keep them from getting those muscle cramps. There's plenty of foods that have that in them. A lot of the green vegetables, bananas. You don't give too many bananas to your dog, but bananas have potassium in them, as do oranges, which are also, potassium's also good for joint health. And you can certainly look at my sister's new book for more ideas on what to feed your dog to build his heat when it's this cold out. Chicken, for one thing, builds their heat. It's a hot food. Even if you feed them cold chicken, it's still a hot food, so that will feed their heat. Now, Tristan is already too hot because he's been getting too much chicken treats. So we're actually trying to get him a little colder. But most dogs will need a little more care in the winter to balance out their heat and cold ratio, especially if you've got an old dog or a dog with certain conditions, heart disease, kidney disease, and particularly Cushing's disease. They lose the ability to regulate their body temperature. These animals tend to feel cold all the time, as anyone with an older pony can tell you. They are cold little fellows, even though they're just fluffed up with lots of hair and then they have blankets on them. And so it is hard for these older pets and pets with these particular diseases to regulate their temperature in the cold weather. So you really don't want to take a dog with heart disease or kidney disease or Cushing's disease for much of a walk outside in the winter, because it's just too cold for them, and they may be warm enough for a bit and then they're going to get this bone-chilling cold that is really hard for them to warm up. And short-legged dogs in particular, you got to be careful with out in the cold, because he is literally standing in the snow. Now, snow is generally at 32 degrees, not colder. Snow is a good insulator against the cold, actually. But because his belly is in the cold snow and his feet, he can get a lot colder than a big dog who just has his paws in the snow. The other thing is some of these long, low dogs have a lot of body mass, and that also makes it harder for them to stay warm. A short little round dog like a Pomeranian, they're going to be a lot warmer in the cold than some of these other kinds of dogs. Make sure you check for cats under your cars. We all forget. I don't even have a cat, but you know, when I'm somewhere at like somebody's house or a parking lot somewhere where there might be stray cats, we all know cats love to go up into the engine of the car because they're looking for a warm place. And in this weather, even a cat that has learned not to do that will be very tempted because it is so cold. So make sure you make a lot of noise when you're getting into the car. You might just kick it a little bit, bang it a little bit with your hands so that if there is a cat under there, and around here we have chipmunks that do this, so that they can run out so they're not in the engine when you start the car. And surely there are stories of cats riding in the engine of someone's car in some strange chamber where they're not injured for hundreds of miles and then being recovered and returned home. But really a good idea to get those cats out from under your car. And of course, check their paws. And if we were using space heaters or fireplaces or wood stoves, these are very dangerous for pets. They can get overheated, they can knock space heaters over, they can get too close to the fireplace, embers from the wood stove can fall out and hit the dog's hair or the cat's hair. I know several cats that have been burned because they didn't move when someone was putting more wood in the fireplace or the wood stove. So be really careful with your pet around any kind of heat source. A lot of people now put a little X-Pen around the front of the fireplace or the wood stove just to keep the pets from getting too close. And this is especially important with cats because they really want to be warm. And a cold dog will also try to get close to the fire and fall asleep and might not even notice that their hair is starting to singe because they're so hot. So that's an important thing. Also, water. Make sure you check for water. Your pets don't drink enough water in the winter, so you might want to add a little bit more water than usual to their food just to keep them hydrated. Dehydration is a big problem in the winter. We think about it in the summer and in the desert, but for horses, not drinking enough in the winter can be really life-threatening if they get a colic or an impaction. And the same is true for dogs. And if you are feeding a dry dog food, absolutely mix it with water, especially in the winter. And Tristan gets dehydrated food, so I just put more water in there than he's normally getting. Why are you're so cute hiding in there, honey. And then also in my area, boy, when I took my walk yesterday with him, it was so cold, the trees were just cracking, and we have this beetle problem with our hemlocks, and a lot of them have been really damaged, and they're starting to fall down up and down my street. So the cracking made me really nervous. But the issue with the trees falling is that they can crack and fall down and hit the power lines, and you'll have a power outage. And many of us in these cold country parts of the country really are worried about power outages at this time of year because it is just so cold. I don't know how long this house would stay warm with absolutely no heat at all. My old house did all right. It was warm-ish for about 4 days when we had a power outage, but it was a much smaller house. This is a big open house, so it's a little harder to keep it warm, although it does have much better insulation and better windows. But in case of a power outage, make sure that you have a little emergency pack ready for your pet all winter long. Just put a couple of days supply of food, his medicine, whatever he may be taking, and a couple of bottles of water for your pet, and just keep that in a little place in your house that you can grab in a hurry if you have to go to a shelter or if you have to go to a friend's house where they have heat or a wood stove, just so that your pet won't be forgotten in that time of stress when things are just getting out of control. And certainly with trees falling, you know, you want to definitely be ready to take your pet on the road. So make sure you just have a little emergency kit prepared for the winter as well. And don't forget to include medications, a copy of his rabies certificate. God, you don't want to be somewhere where they're going to make you get an extra rabies shot. So make sure you got a copy of that. you know, in my town, you know, your dog is registered and the town has a copy of the rabies certificate. And if there were a shelter in my town, they could certainly check the town records, but they might not have time to do that. So it's always good to keep a copy of your rabies certificate around, and any vaccine records that you have as well. We're all trying to vaccinate less often, but whatever you have is better than nothing. So keep that all together in a little emergency bag for your dog, with also a little, his bed maybe, or a blanket or something like that that he'll have from home, because that can really help quiet them when they're in a shelter or at the friend's house or somewhere where they're unfamiliar. So that's some points for health tips for your pets over the cold weather. Everybody stay warm. Keep your pets inside. Do not leave them outside unattended for any length of time at all. And make sure you stay warm too. I have a lot of clients today, a lot of running around to do. It's been a busy week here trying to catch up on things from being away. I still have hundreds of emails to go through. Oh, so everybody stay warm. Tristan and I are going to stay warm. My walk might be running up and down the 4 flights of stairs 25 times today, because I don't want to go out there again. My nose got very chilly yesterday and it was 12 degrees. I don't think it's going to be that warm today. Thanks for joining us. Stay warm. Take good care of your pets in this weather, and especially keep track of your kitties. This is very hard weather on kitties. We'll see you tomorrow at 9:30. Have a great day.